What's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Game of the Day. Today we saw day 7 of the group stage of Worlds 2020, and coming into the day it promised to be a really exciting one. We had Fnatic, Gen.G and LGD all tied for first place in Group C, and even TSM, coming into the day winless, still had a chance to qualify for playoffs. My favorite to make it out of this group in first place was Gen.G. I thought they were overall the most well-rounded team, with BDD and Ruler, two exceptional players in the traditional carry roles, and Clit and Life, really good players in the supportive roles of support and jungle. The only question mark I had about Gen.G was their top laner Rascal. I don't rate him that highly. I think they should put him on tanks or bruisers in most instances, and I think that was also shown, his kind of coin flippy nature was kind of shown throughout this day. In second, I had Fnatic. I think Selfmade is one of the best junglers in this tournament. I think Reckless had a really good summer split and he played himself into form coming into this Worlds. Then you have Hylissang and Bwipo, also two coin flippy players that showed up in the clutch more often than not, so I have a little bit of faith in them. And then to me, the weak or sore spot for Fnatic is Nemesis in the mid lane, which is not a good place to have your weakest player, but more often than not, I think Fnatic can make it work around him. Sadly, that would mean that the run of LGD from the Chinese playoffs to the regional qualifier to play-ins and now the Worlds groups would come to an end if it went my way or the way of my predictions, and that TSM, the first seed coming out of an A, would not get out of groups here. So without further ado, let's get right into it. But beware, there's spoilers ahead, so don't say you haven't been warned. Once again, we had a lot of lopsided victories today. A lot of games where the team that got the early lead were able to snowball that into a win. One game that wasn't that straightforward was Gen.G versus LGD, and it was the game of the day to me. But, as always, let's run through the day from top to bottom. In the first matchup of the day, we saw TSM going up against Fnatic. TSM had to win this match if they wanted to maintain any chance to still make it to playoffs. Sadly for them, that isn't what happened at all. They let themselves get choked out of this game completely. Fnatic took dragon after dragon until they had the Ocean Soul and Baron at 23 minutes into the game and just finished the game from there. The only thing I want to highlight is the Galio pick on Bjergsen. These last 2 years, we didn't see TSM on the international stage, but whenever we saw them, and this includes this year, Bjergsen was the best performing player coming into the international competitions. And year after year, we've seen TSM put him on supportive champions that can't solo or hard carry a game. And I hate it. As Michael Jordan once said, there's no I in team, but there is one in win. And sometimes you just have to give your best player most opportunities to carry you to a win, and that is absolutely not what TSM did here. The next matchup was much more exciting. As I already said, LGD versus Gen.G was my game of the day, and going over the draft shortly, I think Gen.G have drafted a very strong top side, with Volibear and Nidalee being able to skirmish from very early on, and a much more scaling bottom side of the Rift, with the Azir and the Senna looking to scale up. On LGD's side, their bot side is much more aggressive with the Pantheon. With Life on the Tahm Kench on the other side, I think the Pantheon should mostly look to get out of lane and have impact elsewhere, because with the Senna heals, with the Devour from Tahm Kench, the Thick Skin, which gives you a shield or healing. I think there's just too many defensive options for Gen.G here to really stomp the lane from LGD's perspective. The top side for LGD is similarly strong early on, with the Renekton and the Lilia having similar opportunities and capabilities to the Volibear Nidalee. And then in mid lane, the Orianna, very similar to the Azir. The mid lane mage with a lot of wave clear and a teamfight defining ultimate. We see this very early on with Peanut coming for a gank here. The Renekton stun comes through after Rascal flashes very early, but then we see Peanut going under the turret, overestimating himself a little bit and giving over first blood and the red buff to Rascal. Gen.G used this mistake immediately. First, Clit pushes Peanut out of his own jungle and then rotates to the top side where Rascal is already pushing in the minion wave. He still has that red buff. He has already backed and TP'd back in. And this is the easiest dive in the world. And now we have a double kill on Rascal's Volibear. He should be able to bully this Renekton in lane very, very heavily. After this early disadvantage, LGD were able to stabilize very well in the mid game. We now see a pretty even game with LGD actually being up in Drakes, but BDD's Azir comes in huge for Gen.G. He scoops up the Orianna and the Jhin, or no, it was a Jhin in the Pantheon actually, but off the backside of this, Gen.G is also able to take down Shia's Orianna and transition that into a Baron. With that Baron, Gen.G is able to take 2 inhibitors in mid and bottom, but then they overstay their welcome just a little bit. BDD gets shut down and Gen.G lose a crucial teamfight in front of the base of LGD. With the teamfight victory, LGD are able to secure a Baron for themselves, push out the mid lane, and when Gen.G go to take their third dragon, their second Cloud Dragon, LGD decide to not even contest them and instead barrel down the mid lane. This is a very viable option and we often see this. This is not the Soul Dragon, and instead of contesting for the Drake, LGD decide to take down turrets and get themselves more gold. Where it becomes unconventional though is here where they decide to stick around, not just take a couple of turrets and back away, but go for the end of the game. And they actually come very close. They take the inhibitor, they take both Nexus turrets, but they can't finish off the Nexus. And so now it's on Gen.G's, in Gen.G's hands to finish this game, to avoid being backdoored because their Nexus is defenseless. And that's exactly what they do. Rascal TPs into the top lane, pushes in the minion wave, and even with LGD respawning, it's not enough. Gen.G take this game for themselves. Now we have Gen.G and TSM being 3-1, LGD 2-2. They need to win their next game to keep their hopes alive. The next game saw TSM pitted up against Gen.G. At this point, TSM are disqualified from playoffs and basically they're just playing for pride now. And with that pressure gone, they finally put Bjergsen on something like the Lucian. The Lucian is one of the best mid lane champions at the moment, really high win rate at this World Championship so far, and it's banned out very often. So this just reinforces my point from earlier. Why not do something like this earlier in the game or earlier in the day or last week when Bjergsen popping off on a pick like the Lucian could have actually made a difference. Because that's exactly what happens. Bjergsen pops off on the Lucian. TSM catch out Gen.G multiple times in the early game. They have a really strong early game. These are the best 10 minutes, I would say, that TSM have shown this entire tournament. And sadly, they are not able to bring it through in the end. How so, do you ask? They have a 4k gold lead at 25 minutes into the game. They should be able to snowball this, right? They have taken down Klid, Gen.G's jungler. They should be able to take this Baron for free, right? They melt through this Baron with the Aphelios and the Lucian as well. But the ugly side of TSM rears its head here, and they show one of the worst plays I have ever seen in League of Legends pro play. All of TSM abandons Speaker in the Baron pit without smite, and an auto attack from Ruler Senna secures the Baron for Gen.G. This comes after Broken Blade TPs in on the Volibear, ults into the 4 players on Gen.G's side, and then goes straight back out. The communication and coordination on TSM's team in this game looked horrible. They looked good as individual players, getting themselves ahead, getting themselves early kills. You can see Lucian Bjergsen 7-1 in this game. He was 6-0 at one point. He was really going ham, but it wasn't enough for TSM to get a win here. In the early parts of this game, LGD invade Fnatic's red buff with the Graves in their bot lane. But Fnatic's bot lane wait for them in the tri-brush, and they punish their invade heavily, taking down the Nautilus level 1. They also punish Kramer heavily, forcing his cleanse, his flash, and taking him down to 30% HP. So this bot lane is very vulnerable and very rough for LGD very early on into the game. Fnatic, just a couple of minutes later, also bring down Selfmade on the Hecarim and punish the flashless Nautilus again, killing him, going up 2-0 in kills very early in this game. The game deciding factor for me was Fnatic's coordination and team fighting in this one. Right here, we're going to see Hylissang going in onto Kramer, dropping the ultimate. Volibear, Bwipo, he has just completed the Trinity Force. That's big power spike for him. He TPs in here, they take down a double kill, and they even prolong the skirmish to take down Peanut on the Graves, and then they are free to take down their first dragon as well. And this trend continued throughout this game. Fnatic found beautiful engages with Bwipo and Hylissang throughout summer. A lot of analysts talked about Hilly and Bwipo being a coin flippy player as well, and very often it seemed like Bwipo and Hylissang on the TeamSpeak on the Discord saying, you want to go in, you want to go in, you want to fight, and the rest of Fnatic being kind of like, I'm not sure. And now we saw it all come together for Fnatic. This is how this team should play the rest of the tournament, in my opinion, or they should. Of course, that's easy to say, but this is what they are after. This is what their style can look like when it all comes together. When Bwipo and Hylissang initiate these skirmishes, and the rest of Fnatic is there to follow up. We saw the Ash ult from Reckless being thrown without hesitation when Hylissang landed the Zenith Blade onto Kramer. We saw the TP from Bwipo coming in. There was no hesitation on Fnatic's side, and that's how you successfully win these important skirmishes and teamfights. From there, Fnatic were able to snowball this game, and without even taking a Baron, they were able to win one last teamfight, decide the game for themselves, come into LGD's base, and take the Nexus. In the penultimate game of the day, we see LGD versus TSM, two teams that are already eliminated, but for TSM coming in 0-5, it's really about that pride right now, not going out 0-6. They go back to the Zillion to do it. They draft a very self-sufficient bottom lane and a carry-heavy topside, which I like because this is the kind of team comp that TSM has found the most success on. On LGD side, it's pretty standard. It's the Orianna in the mid lane, Nidalee in the jungle. The Pantheon in the bottom lane is maybe the only thing that stands out. And together with the Shen from the top lane, they do have some decent aggressive options, some global options, and they use them to get ahead early in this game. TSM fall pretty far behind actually in this game. Tim Bjergsen gets punished for the weak laning phase of Zilean in a way he has never been punished in NA. This is what happens when you pick the Zilean into world-class players. This is the second time this tournament that he picked it into BDD as well. And BDD himself is a Zilean player as well. So he knows how the champion works, and he punishes Bjergsen heavily in this game. After going down considerably in gold in the early game, TSM actually hold it together pretty well. They deliver what I think is their best mid to late game in this tournament. In their last game, they delivered their best early game, as I already mentioned. So after they are already disqualified, TSM now, once the pressure is off, apparently they are able to play a bit more freely and put in their best performances of the tournament. Sadly, they make one crucial game-ending mistake. After picking off Xie in the side lane, they go for the Baron, and Mark and Kramer are able to stop enough recalls so that Langxing and Peanut can go for the backdoor, and essentially TSM trade Baron for Nexus here, and they lose the game for it. And here we are. This is it. This is for all the marbles. This is for first place in Group Z. This is for avoiding that second Z that has the possibility of being drawn against Damwon, probably top esports in the quarterfinals. So no tiebreaker today, but Fnatic and Gen.G come into this game tied at 4-1, and the winner of this game goes out of this group in first place. Fnatic come into the game with a very interesting draft. This is going back to Spring Split and early summer, when the team tried to play very heavily around Selfmade, trying to make him the heavy carry for this team. It's almost a throwback to the Soraka reckless bot lane, where they also had Selfmade on the Graves, and that was almost their only damage threat. This time they have the Graves with the Senna, so a bit more damage, but around it they draft two tanks in Malphite and Leona, and the Lulu in mid lane. It's the first time at this Worlds we see it in mid, but we've already seen it in top, so we know this strategy can work. On the other hand, we have much more aggressive topside from Gen.G, much more early game focused. They have the Renekton and the Lucian in mid lane, some of the best lane bullies, and together with the Nidalee AP damage coming out of the jungle, this topside is heavy damage, heavy skirmishing potential early on, and once you get a lead, you can snowball that heavily. Their late game insurance is in the bot lane with the Aphelios, and I think the game plan is to get ahead early through the top side and then transition that into the mid game, into the Aphelios, and win out the game that way. Sadly, the draft in this game didn't really matter at all. We see that coming into the skirmish topside, the kills are 2 for 2, and at this point, Gen.G is gonna jump ahead massively. Right here we see Aphelios taking down the Senna in bot lane. At the same time, Selfmade goes down, Bwipo goes down, Rascal goes down, but crucially he gets executed, and Hylissang went down in the bot lane as well. So it's a 2v2 kill on the bot side, 2 kills going onto the late game insurance of Aphelios, and at the same time on the top side, Gen.G get 2 more kills and don't give over any gold to Fnatic on the other hand. And that was basically all she wrote. Gen.G didn't need anything else than these 2 wins simultaneously on top and bot side to snowball this game, roll that snowball all over Fnatic, and they take a Baron off it. Fnatic feel forced to come in and contest, or at least try to take some of these Baron buffs off these Gen.G players. And in an extended chase through the top side of Fnatic's jungle, Gen.G are actually able to turn this fight around, eliminate the remaining players from Fnatic, and then carry the Baron buff into their base, close this game out. And I think this game encapsulates very well what the meta is at this Worlds 2020. It could have only been a bigger snowball if there was a Nunu in this game, and we saw snowballs being rolled up all over the map. A lot of these games at this World Championship are decided very early on, and once a team gets a gold lead, the good teams are defined or characterized by their ability to snowball that lead and close out the game with objectives that you get with that priority. That was day 7 of the group stage of Worlds 2020. Gen.G and Fnatic qualified for the playoffs. As always, thanks for watching. Go to Twitter at esportsidaho to discuss this content, or do it right in the comment section below.